Welcome to YSM Conversations, a gathering place for women who sense something deeper is calling. Together, we believe that the most profound adventures begin within, and that when women gather in deep conversation, something ancient and necessary awakens.
Open the door to a new conversation through generative listening, weaving together generations of wisdom and listening beyond the ears to restore the intelligence your body has always carried and integrate soulfulness into the adventure of your life. This is restoring and connecting to the deeper current running beneath it all.
We are YSM Conversations. Welcome home.
Last time, we followed this conversation into some wild, beautiful terrain: religion, the old paradigm, restoration, and rewilding, before circling back to the heart of it. Why does it actually matter to know your superpower? Let's pick up right where we found our way back to that signpost.
Thank you for bringing us back to the signpost, because I was like, we're off totally in the wild right now.
And at the same time, that going totally into the wild brought us into the recognition of to know your own superpowers and to take that knowledge and self-train invites us into how do we direct that superpower more consciously on behalf of ourselves, expressing who we are and what brings joy and fulfillment to our lives, and also extends that to those that we connect with, whether they are within our family or the strangers of the world that aren't really strangers. So a question popped into my mind for you, specifically of your superpower of asking questions. How did you begin to know yourself as this superpower to meaningfully inquire? Do you remember, were there times earlier in life? Did it happen later in adulthood?
It's a good question, because going back to the beginning of the conversation where I said your superpowers are the things that people say you're really good at, and that you might often respond, I don't know how to not do that. For me, it's been funny because claiming this superpower or even recognizing it in the first place has been a process of acceptance more than, yes, this is my superpower. It's hard for me to recognize how much of a superpower it is, because it is just the way that I show up in the world. And for me, it feels like a given. It doesn't feel like it could be labeled as a superpower, because when we think of superpowers, it's like you can fly or you can become invisible or run really fast. And asking questions almost feels like a lame superpower until we get that self-training and start to recognize that we can wield it in really beautiful ways. The examples that you were giving of being in line or being on a plane and having a conversation with people, or having your field magnetize in conversations. I grew up in the same way, where on planes, at some point in the conversation, someone would say, I've never told anybody that. Or they'd say something like, you're a really good listener. And I would be like, okay, cool. It's been a slow recognition, to answer your question, and acceptance.
It's really similar what we've talked about in numerous conversations. Once we get access to something, some aspect, it's recognition and, oh, there's access here. And then you're talking about wielding what we have access to, that sense of building, self-training, and the practices that we invite consciously into that self-training way of being, then it brings forth claiming it. For me, that's the embodiment and what I'm always after.
Choosing to embody in you, and you also choosing to embody the superpower.
It's like that she's superpower is just waiting for me to notice her. Once you begin to notice a superpower, then another one's waiting in the wings. Like, what about me? I'm cool too.
What about you? When was the recognition of a superpower that you've named before in previous episodes of just showing up?
I have one experience as a preteen teen that always seems to thread through for me in a conversational way. This one's simply talking about it as a superpower. In just showing up, I carry this capacity to be fully present to what I'm present to. And that's the fancier way of saying just show up. So I like both ways of saying it in different moments in time. And it's the funniest, quirkiest kind of story, actually. When I was in my preteen teen years, I was a volunteer at a hospital. You take books around to patients and whatnot. They called them candy stripers in those days. I don't even know if they still exist. I don't think that they would allow young people to come in to a hospital system. But that was a pivotal time of seeing myself being present to people who are not feeling their best, not feeling their wholeness in physical ways and mental, emotional ways. So I could just sit and read a book with them and be present with them, and it could have an impact. And in relationship to that, I also got curious. My father was a chess player, and he would take me to the Friday night chess club, and I'd hang out and I learned to play chess. One of the guys that steadily came was also a psychiatrist. I was playing a game of chess one night with this gentleman, and I found out what he did for a living. And I said, "Oh, can I come? I'm at the hospital next door, candy striping. Can I come and see your facility area?" And it knocked his socks off. Why would this young kid want to come and hang out at the quote loony bin in those days? He looked at my father and was like, "Do we grant this?" And my dad's like, "Sure, why not?" Exactly. And so the power of moving with just showing up for something that I had no idea what I was asking. And I now retroactively, all these years later, point that marker to what had me become a therapist later in life, what has me do coaching now, what has me want to sit in various configurations with people, and what has me be a presence standing in a line or sitting in an airplane seat and being curious about story. We all have story. So I can retroactively point to that as a moment in time that my superpower began to reveal itself. I had no idea truly that it would take me to where I am today.
And that almost feels like the superpower who's waiting in the wings for you to notice her, being like, yeah, you got to take that step, and then that step, and then that step, and then we'll get there eventually. Helping to guide you into that self training and wielding and owning and embodying.
And you know how I'm always one to say I get nudged. Part of my just showing up presence superpower is the nudging moves that superpower forward to be expressed through myself first and into the world. So nudging is in relationship with the superpower. I wonder what other people's superpowers are.
It's fun.
Wouldn't that be cool to have a storyline, a story hour of what's your superpower? I'm checking it back in with you in tracking the terrain. What have we covered so far in this conversation?
I was just going to do the same and say, I think we pulled into when you were saying, why does it matter to know your superpower? And we didn't fully, or we didn't explicitly say why it matters.
Go for it.
In the simplest terms, it feels like knowing yourself and stepping into your fullness, your wholeness. And that word acceptance comes back again of knowing, accepting yourself and all the pieces that, and we talk about accepting the pieces that we don't like that much about ourselves. And in this context, it's accepting the pieces that are really showing up for us. And that when we acknowledge it and have that self training, can be the most exquisite parts of ourselves.
You brought me into this remembering that a downside of my superpower of powerful presence is that I can be someone who likes to deep dive and dig deeper. And not everybody wants to go at the pace I go. So that can be the cost of it too. I have to make space for what the container in front of me is and be mindful. And that's consciously self-training. They all interweave in the storytelling of it. But that mindfulness of allowing, inviting, accepting people where they are, what they could move with and through, and the grace of patience to hold space for that feeling of hopefulness, holding space for what's possible.
I had this imagery a while back of what is it really that I'm doing with my clients in working through life transitions and personal coaching. And the imagery that came to me was we're going to go on a walk through terrain, and some of that terrain is going to be dark and uncomfortable. And I'm going to have my light. I'm going to be wielding my light, and we're going to walk through until you can wield your own light and you feel ready and comfortable and able. And then you're going to do the guiding.
And that can only happen in us if we claim our superpowers.
Yeah.
Something else that popped in while you were saying that, it may relate to or it may thread something else for us, is this notion of how do we hold a space in which we can give other people permission to ask for their superpower to move from the wings?
What a question. Because earlier, when we were talking about being in the wings and coming through in the nudges, it was that superpower waiting in the wing, providing you the nudges to be able to follow so that it can come through and you can own that this is a beautiful part of you when you're ready. So I think with this question of how do we create a container to help that superpower come from the wings into the forefront is about creating the container for readiness for it. What, in your experience, Victoria, has readiness felt like for that superpower to come through?
I want to come through how you and I both know the readiness is through the body. And as we have become supra-powered capacity for somatic body experience and tracking, and we've talked about that in other podcasts and given tastes of ways you can do that, that feels like, as a team of collaborators of YSM, that's a superpower that we both integrate. It's organic, and we have both self-trained through various practices, building yoga practices, mindfulness practices, and other energy practices that over time we have built containers in which the superpowers then do come through. So it feels like it's through the body. Listen to your body. It's always communicating with you. And building a container in which we might guide others through the body experience, the mind attending to the somatics, and the integration and interweaving, then those superpowers nudge and we create the container in which we can ask for that permission to claim who we are and remember who we are, which we've talked about numerous times. So it feels really palpable right now, what we're pointing to, that there's a true access point to accessing your superpower, self-training, knowing and claiming your superpower, recognizing, realizing how it matters in your life to have your superpowers present and working with and on behalf of you and others. It feels like we have landed so much in this conversation, and yet there's still things I didn't even get to. And I'm looking at, are we complete for now? What are the last little pieces that want to come into this one moment in time that thread into the next conversations. You're such a good integrator. And I know I have that superpower because I recognize it in you. I know I'm an integrator too. A synthesizer is my more chosen superpower word. So integrate, please.
Amazing. As you were speaking, I just got hit with this wave of, it's all here. I'll see if I can pull it through into a sequential way that makes sense for our human brains. As you were speaking, you brought back in the superpower, supra power, and the power on behalf of all, as well as when we know we're ready or how we know we're ready through the body, which led me back to your share about what does it feel like in the body when I really do want to lean in and I am resonating with this compared to when it's not necessarily in resonance, even though I have the superpower to be able to do it and have this deep conversation with somebody, weaving forward with the piece that you mentioned of not everybody wants to go as deep as I do, and not everybody wants to, in this moment, go as deep as I want to, and how all these pieces want to come together as wielding our superpower requires the readiness of knowing the difference between when it is on behalf of all and when it is not on behalf of all, and those differences somatically so that we can lean in when we are in resonance, because that's resonance across the entire field, versus letting go of the responsibility to share our superpower in that moment when it is not actually on behalf of the other person or the other being that is in the field right now. And that's that lack of resonance that's coming, in which we need to know that we can let that energy dissipate through our bodies and not ask all the questions and just come back into ourselves and not into the, we're going to show everybody our superpower. We're going to share our superpower with everybody because we're so excited about it, when it's not on behalf of that other being in this moment. And I found this too in my work, where I am really excited to share that superpower and I do want to dive deep. And sometimes it's not the time to do that. And it's also not mine to help them do that. The term spiritual robbery helped me really see that, where my superpower really wanted to come out and ask those questions, to dive in and help guide through and hold that light so that someone else, that person, can then wield their own light. And realizing that me wanting that for them more than they wanted it for themselves was spiritual robbery, aka robbing them of the opportunity to develop that part of themselves and their superpower.
I'm taking a deep breath and taking that in, because that is a whole nother conversation. This is the magic of generative listening, when we come together with our superpowers of presence and integrative, wise capacities. Lots of superpowers are hanging out around both of us right now. And in that, we allow that presence of the supra powerness of our capacities to shine. And in that desire in me to guide other people in that connection, surfaces my heart into my throat and wants to move towards that. I can feel that movement from the belly, the wise aspects through the heart of wanting it to be known to others and remembering who we all are, and then to be voiced and expressed in the world. And in that closing of how that will get shaped, listeners, stay tuned, because we've talked about this before, that something's coming forward. It's drawing nearer and nearer now.
Beautiful. What a juicy, rich, yummy conversation. So wonderful to be with you, Victoria. And thank you all for tuning in with us and diving deep into another session of generative listening. I'm Danielle, YS, and this is Victoria McMahon, and we are YSM. Until next time.
Thank you for diving deep with us into generative listening. If this episode stirred something in you, subscribe to keep restoring with us. And if someone came to mind while you were in your own generative listening, share this episode with them. Because when women gather, something ancient and necessary awakens.
We are YSM Conversations, connecting back to the deeper currents on behalf of seeding our next collective wholeness.